Welcome to another video, and today I want to talk about the fact that AIM is being shut down as of December 2017. And the reason why that's important is because AIM is an old piece of software. It is an instant messenger. And if you didn't know what AIM was, well then you're probably young. Because AIM was released back in 1997, which is like 20 years ago. And it really kind of revolutionized, maybe not really revolutionized, but it at least paved the way for instant messengers that we use today. AIM stands for AOL Instant Messenger, and AOL actually at one point in time also owned ICQ, which is another instant messenger that actually still exists today because it was kind of killed off, but the company that owns the product now actually ended up releasing the product as open source and free on the internet, so anybody is free to use ICQ if they still choose to. And the unfortunate thing is that AIM isn't doing that. I wish it was, because it would be really interesting to just see the source code of AIM and see just kind of how exactly it functioned. I'm wondering maybe if AOL is purposely not releasing it because of the fact that maybe there's a hidden piece of code that is actually sending all of your messages onto AOL's server and they don't want everybody to know that. I know I'm being super paranoid, but hey, you never know with things today. AOL is actually owned by a company called Oath, and Oath is actually a division of Verizon. But what's interesting to note is that Oath also owns Yahoo, who also created Yahoo Messenger. And Yahoo Messenger is actually still actively developed. Mind you, it's not the same Yahoo Messenger that was released back in the 90s, but the fact that Yahoo Messenger is still being actively developed and still actively supported is really, really cool, because it's almost as old as AIM. But what's interesting is that Oath owns both of these companies, and yet they chose to kill off AIM and not Yahoo Messenger. I knew of more people using AIM versus Yahoo Messenger. Now, I don't know what those statistics are today. Maybe there was more users using Yahoo Messenger versus AIM, but at the same time, AOL used to be this known company for connecting people to the internet, because AOL used to stand for America Online, which was getting Americans onto the internet. And I remember, if you were a 90s kid, you'd probably remember this too, where you'd get these magazines, and it was free AOL dial-up internet, you just use this CD. And I had so many of those CDs because I was yeah, if I have 30,000 of these CDs, I'll have free internet forever, because that's how this works. Unfortunately, that's not exactly how that worked, and that didn't pan out. But anyways, and then shortly after Yahoo Messenger was released, then MSN Messenger came out, which was made by Microsoft, and MSN Messenger eventually evolved into Windows Live Messenger, which kind of eventually now evolved into what we know as Skype. Without these other instant messengers, I wonder if we would have instant messaging the way that we do today, because you may not realize how much you actually use instant messaging. iMessage is an instant messenger, just because of the way that Apple has deeply integrated it into their iOS devices as well as the Mac operating system. You don't end up really realizing you're using an instant messenger, because you were so used to having to install an instant messenger, then having an email account, and then having to invite people. But Apple kind of removed that when they integrated iMessage directly into your text messaging application. And that's why whenever you're trying to send a text message to someone that doesn't have an iOS device, they sometimes have problems and stuff like that, because it's actually failing over to the text messaging protocol rather than the instant messaging protocol of iMessage. There are some roundabout ways to kind of get iMessage on Android devices, but it's not as seamless as the way iMessage currently functions across Mac products. I don't understand why Apple doesn't just release iMessage for all the other devices, and then I think a lot of people would jump on board. I know I would enable it, because I have a lot of friends that are on iMessage, but I don't want to have an iPhone, so I'm going to keep using my Android phone. Facebook tried to correct this, because Facebook Messenger ended up evolving from Facebook Chat, and with Facebook Messenger on Android, you can actually integrate it with your text messaging application, so then anytime you're messaging someone, you could either send them as a Facebook message, which essentially would be an instant message, or it would fail over to text messaging. Exactly how iMessage essentially functions at its core. And it kind of really didn't take off because Facebook has some strange privacy things and all of that, and it was kind of a nuisance, and it didn't really function exactly how they kind of pitched it to function. But if you essentially create an instant messaging program that works with text messaging and you make it supported across devices and the entire world adopts it, well then you'll have seamless messaging and it won't matter if you're on an iPhone or an Android device. But that hasn't happened. And Facebook is the only company I really can think of that's kind of tried to do that. WhatsApp kind of does it, but WhatsApp has a huge spam problem because I get spam on WhatsApp and like nobody has my WhatsApp account. So like why am I getting spam? But that's for like a different video. Another interesting thing to make note of is before iMessage actually existed, any Macs that were shipped with this program called iChat, which worked with AIM. And I thought that was really cool because eventually I think iChat evolved and then Apple kind of figured out what they were doing and decided to go proprietary everything because that's what Apple does best. And they eventually created iMessage. So I believe that iMessage is probably an evolution of iChat's integration with AIM and then eventually became iMessage because that's kind of the logical conclusion you can come to. At least that's what I think. What was one of the first instant messaging programs that you used? I originally started using Yahoo Messenger, but very shortly switched over to MSN Messenger, and I used MSN Messenger for years. I used it so much. I wonder if I can ever find any of my chat logs from MSN Messenger because that would actually be kind of interesting to read all these years later and just be like, young Dan, you are an idiot. But yeah, in the comments below, let me know what was the first instant messenger that you used. And yeah, that kind of sums up this video. I think it's kind of appropriate that it's going up on Canadian Thanksgiving, so I guess I'm thankful for the fact that instant messengers exist because it is such a nice way to communicate. And instant messengers have evolved from just sending messages to now you can do like screen sharing and you can send like FaceTime and video chat and all of that, and like instant messaging is just, it's so interesting, but I don't know what any instant messenger could do that it doesn't already do. Like, all of them are essentially the same at the core. It's just how it's supported on different applications is where they all differ, and how many users are actually using that instant messaging program is another gigantic part of it. Like, you could have the greatest instant messaging program, but if millions of users aren't using it, well then you're just talking to a void of silence. It's kind of like when Twitter first started, nobody was really using it, and then eventually it started taking off, and now like everybody has a Twitter account. Same thing with like Facebook, similar kind of concept. So yeah, I think it's interesting. But anyways, that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. So I guess in my long-winded way of saying, I'm thankful for the fact that instant messengers existed. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. Thank you for watching. I will see you next week. Don't forget to have an epically awesome day. Bye!